Welcome, and thank you for joining the University of South Carolina Study Abroad office for this parents webinar. This webinar was designed to give you a bit more information about your students' upcoming study abroad experience. We probably have people in attendance who are quite familiar already with everything study abroad related, and there's probably even more of you whose children may not have told you anything about their study abroad program. So our goal here is to shed some light on the process here at USC and have all of your questions answered. Before we start, I just wanted to do a quick housekeeping note. You may have noticed there's a chat box on the side of your screen. Feel free to use this to ask us any questions that you may have along the way. We have two study abroad advisors also participating with us electronically here, Taylor and Anuja, and they're on hand to answer your questions as we're presenting. And if you'd like a recording of this webinar to be emailed to you, please type your email address in the chat box. And you can just do that the one time because we can scroll through and pull it. I also want to alert you to the fact that we are sitting in a bit of a construction zone in our building. So if you do hear any background noises, I apologize in advance. There's some workers above on the floor above us working today. So to begin with, I would like to introduce our group today presenting. My name is Magdalena Grudzinski Hall. I am the director of the Study Abroad office. I've been at USC for almost 5 years this August. I oversee an office of 10 full-time staff, 4 graduate assistants, and 7 undergraduate peer advisors. We support study abroad in all of its forms: semester abroad, short-term abroad, faculty-led global classrooms, some summer programs. And so our numbers are increasing, and we're super proud of that this year.
Hi, my name is Chrissy Foppel. I'm the Assistant Director of Undergraduate Advising here in the office, and I've been with the Study Abroad office for about 4 years now. I myself studied abroad in France when I was a Gamecock many years ago, and I also taught abroad in a couple of countries and did my Peace Corps service in Senegal, so that's a little bit about me.
And my name is Allison Kretschmar, and I'm the Senior Study Abroad Advisor here in the office, and I've been with the Study Abroad office specifically for about 3 years. And I studied abroad in Denmark as an undergraduate student and have taught abroad in South Korea.
So I just want to reiterate to you that we send close to 2,000 students abroad every academic year. This past year, we've supported close to 60 faculty-led programs and have awarded over $800,000 in institutional funds to support study abroad. Most of our students do come from the business school, followed closely by the College of Arts and Sciences, and I'm very proud as the Arnold School of Public Health is also on the rise. Our long-term study abroad numbers are increasing by 12%, 12.5% from year to year. We are also recognized both by the Forum on Education Abroad and NAFSA, Association of International Educators, for excellence in our pre-departure preparation for students. We have a packed agenda for you today, and we'll be covering logistical information such as an overview of our programming, which includes housing information, credits and transcripts, how financial aid works with study abroad, our mandatory health insurance, and budgeting and visa tips. We'll also be looking at what the transition is like when a student goes abroad and how you can best support your child during this time. So let's dive right in.
The Study Abroad office has about 1,500 different programs for students to choose from, and all of these programs can be broken up into 4 different models of programming. So the first one is our global exchange programs. With these programs, we have established relationships with universities around the world. For each student we send abroad to one of these universities, they'll send us one of their students, so in effect we're exchanging students, hence the name. With this type of program, students are paying in-state tuition to USC, while housing and other on-campus costs are paid directly to the host institution abroad. A few examples of global exchange programs are the University of Newcastle in Australia, the University of Kent in the UK, and the Chinese University of Hong Kong. Global direct programs are fairly similar through established universities abroad that we have agreements with. However, in this type of program, students pay their tuition directly to the host university and not to USC. A few examples of these include the University of Waikato in New Zealand and Maynooth University in Ireland. Global partner programs, our third type up there, are study abroad programs that are run through a collaboration with a third-party program provider, which is kind of like a study abroad company. So these programs facilitate the study abroad experience for our students. Students pay a program fee to these partner programs and do not pay tuition to USC at all. The program fee typically includes tuition, housing, and excursions. Some examples of our global partner programs that you might have heard of are ISA, SAI, and USAC. Finally, we have global classroom programs. These are our faculty-led programs that typically take place over the Maymester and summer terms. They're led by USC professors, and students travel and learn with a cohort of other USC students. These can be anywhere from 10 days to 4 weeks in length. With this type of program, students pay in-state tuition to USC for the credits that they earn from the course. And then on top of that, there's a program fee that covers generally housing, in-country transportation, meals, and entrance fees to certain sites and events that are associated with the course. So I know that there's a lot of minute details regarding each type of program, but if you have questions about which program your child is participating in, please ask them. At this point, they should be familiar with the type of program that they're doing and what that means. So we often get asked what type of housing a student will live in during their term abroad, and there's no one answer to that question. So it really depends on the type of program that your child is participating in, as well as the type of housing that they themselves have selected. Most housing can be categorized as student apartment, homestay, or off-campus living. So in a student apartment or residence, students will be living with other US, local, or international students. Often when a student is participating in a global partner program, they will be housed with other US students who are using the same program provider. Like residence halls here at USC, students might be sharing a bedroom with another student, or it might be suite style in that they have a single bedroom, but they share the larger suite with a few other students. Typically, there are modest cooking facilities, and if so, students can typically count on the cooking utensils and their needs to be furnished, as well as basic linens. But they should ask their program provider about this before departure. Homestays are a great way for students to truly be immersed in a new culture and language. Students might be the only one assigned to a family, or they might be sharing the family with another student. Either way, our programs that offer homestays as an option have typically been working with these families for years. They've vetted them and know that they're working with wonderful families. Typically, when a student stays with a homestay, then breakfast and dinners are included in the program fee, and students will take these meals with the families, and then lunch is typically eaten on campus. However, we've heard of many cases where the families will even pack up a lunch for their newly adopted children to take with them to school. These families really treat our students like their own children and take good care of them. In most homestay situations, linens are provided, but again, that's something to ask the program before departure. Some of our students do live off campus, just as they would here at USC. It could be that they choose to live off campus or that they were not able to secure on-campus housing in time. Just as it is at USC, on-campus living can be difficult and competitive to get into. Off-campus living is usually an option through global exchange and global direct programs. If your child is living off campus, typically our host institutions around the world can assist with finding apartments or houses, and in some cases can even assist in reviewing leases before students sign them. Because each program is so different and the housing options all vary, I would encourage your child to reach out directly to their study abroad advisor if they have any questions about their housing.
Students will be receiving a transcript from their term abroad, which will either be issued from a foreign institution or a US-based institution. Your student should know what type of transcript they are receiving, and if they don't, they're welcome to follow up with us. With foreign transcripts, grades are pass-fail only, and they do not affect your child's overall GPA. With US-based transcripts, your child will be issued an actual letter grade, but again, the overall GPA will not be affected. However, if your child is a recipient of the Life Scholarship, there's an exception. Because Life Scholarship recipients are required to maintain a 3.0 GPA, and because any coursework they take must factor into this GPA, whether it's courses taken abroad or transferred in from another institution domestically, then these students will have what's called a Life GPA. In this case, foreign transcripts are pass-fail. Grades earned abroad will not affect the Life GPA. If the student is receiving a US-based transcript and therefore earning letter grades, these grades will contribute and affect the life GPA. It is the student's responsibility to make sure that their study abroad program sends their transcript to the USC Study Abroad office. It takes an average of 2 to 3 months for our office to receive transcripts from abroad. It might take a bit less, and sometimes more, but we do work with universities around the world that operate on a very different system of time than we do here in the US. But because of this processing time, your child shouldn't be alarmed if they don't immediately see their credit from abroad show up on their USC transcript. Until we receive those transcripts, students will see their transfer credits show up as INTL at the top of the USC transcript. INTL is the USC placeholder course that all students are registered for while abroad, and this is something that we would do on the student's behalf. I also should mention that your child has been working on course approvals before they depart on their program. They work jointly with the Study Abroad office and with their academic advisor, and as long as they follow procedure, then they know that they will receive credit for their coursework overseas. If they do have to pass the class, though, in order to get credit. But we want to assure you that course of credit approval is worked out before your student even goes abroad. All right, we're going to move on to financial aid and scholarships. One of the first and great pieces of news to share is that almost all financial aid received for USC can be applied towards a study abroad program for students studying abroad for a full semester. For our summer study abroad participants, students can apply for summer federal financial aid via the FAFSA if they are taking 6 or more credit hours over the summer. The deadline for this application is May 1st. We often get the question from students about when their financial aid is dispersed from USC. According to federal regulation, state and federal financial aid is dispersed 10 days prior to the start of the respective USC term. If a student is receiving other types of financial aid, for example, a study abroad scholarship that is coming from the USC Study Abroad office, the date for dispersal might be slightly different. Financial aid will go first towards any USC fees on the bill, like parking tickets or any unpaid fees. And then any overage will be dispersed to the students. They can either receive the overage via direct deposit, which will get them those funds more quickly, or they will be issued a check. If your child would like to set up the direct deposit option, they can visit their Self-Service Carolina account at my.sc.edu. Sometimes we hear from students that they have difficulty paying their study abroad program fees until their financial aid is dispersed. What we tell these students in a situation like this is to reach out to their program provider and see if they can set up a payment plan. Some of our partner programs are able to work with students to establish a payment plan that works for everybody.
Your child is required to enroll in emergency health insurance while abroad. This is not meant to take the place of any regular health insurance, and it's not travel insurance. It's a supplement to your already existing health insurance and only covers the duration that your child is abroad. The USC Study Abroad office will automatically enroll your child, and they'll be billed in the same way that they're billed for other USC fees through Self-Service Carolina. Our insurance provider that we work with is Cultural Insurance Services International, or CISI for short. The fee for this insurance is roughly $30 per month, and this is per calendar month. So if a student is going abroad over the summer for a few weeks and the program spans a 2-month period, so for example, they'll be abroad from May 28th to June 20th, then because that spans 2 calendar months, then their insurance charge will be $60. Our semester students will pay $180 for the full semester for insurance, and academic year students are charged $360. So you're probably wondering what's covered by this insurance, and it's quite a lot actually. Our insurance policy covers medical care at a doctor's office or hospital, travel expenses for a parent or caregiver if a student has to be hospitalized 6 consecutive days or more, evacuation in the case of an emergency and the student must be evacuated, and in this case CISI will put together the evacuation plan and cover the costs. It covers repatriation of remains and so much more. Your child can create an account and print personalized insurance cards at www.culturalinsurance.com that you see there on the screen. They should keep their insurance card on them at all times in case of an emergency. The CISI smartphone app is also an efficient tool for accessing insurance information, storing documents, and searching this preferred provider list. So on the website or the app, students can search by city or location to get a list of all approved medical providers in that area. And they'll also find a list of preferred providers. So what does that mean? Preferred providers are medical companies in which CISI has already established a relationship and can expedite the insurance claim process. So students can use their insurance at any approved medical provider. Preferred providers make the process run a little bit more smoothly. You can see on that screenshot on the very right-hand side that there are 3 providers listed, but one is highlighted as a preferred provider. So students can select any of those medical providers, but the preferred provider has been proven to accept CISI insurance without students having to pay out of pocket and then get reimbursed later. We're also able to file a claim on behalf of our students should that need arise. We always encourage students to save any receipts from medical related expenses because that's what's required to get reimbursed from CISI. One thing to note is that your child's program may also require them to be enrolled in some type of health insurance plan. So it might happen that your child is doubly enrolled. This is a very common occurrence, and you can rest assured knowing that your child might be covered more than they ever will be again in their life. To continue with the theme of health resources available to students, we have a number of support points of contact. USC has a travel clinic located in the Thompson Student Health Center. In addition to offering a full range of vaccines and immunizations recommended or required to enter countries worldwide, the travel clinic offers full consultations to help travelers stay healthy, safe, and secure while traveling. We've already discussed the resources available from our insurance provider, CISI, but I wanted to reiterate that they provide an extensive list of providers for students to easily look up. Also, the U.S. State Department website is also a highly valuable tool for locating medical professionals who speak English. They also provide resources for managing health emergencies abroad. A lot of our host institutions and program providers also have on-site health centers, which retain physicians and mental health counselors. Many times these are offered at no cost to the student who's considered a full-time student at that institution with all the benefits of being a full-time student. Other times students might need to use their CISI insurance to access those facilities. And speaking of on-site, I also want to discuss what sort of support students can expect to receive once they're abroad. So due to federal regulations with the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, or FERPA, the Study Abroad Office can only share limited information with parents. Our primary contact is always going to be directly with the students, but an exception can be made in the case of emergencies, of course. While our office is always available to assist students, we'd like to emphasize that they will have immediate local support through their host institution or program provider. Students will receive emergency contact information and protocol from their provider once they're abroad. Their point of contact might be our counterpart office at the host institution, or it might be a resident director, coordinator, or other on-site staff. We always like to remind students as well that student support or student affairs might look very different in other countries. Institutions in the US tend to have a very extensive array of student services such as tutoring assistance, disability support services, career center, etc. This might not be the case with your child's institution abroad. Some might require students to be a bit more independent and to solve problems on their own. In our advising sessions with students as we're exploring programs that might be a good match, we always delve into each program's expected level of support. So hopefully this was a factor as your child was going through the decision-making process. Long story short, there are going to be a number of ways that your child is supported abroad. If students or parents have questions about certain issues that they're facing and where they can turn to for support, always feel free to reach out to our office first, and then we can direct you to the right resources. In the case of emergencies, the Study Abroad office is always quick to step in. We consider an emergency to be any situation where a student's health or safety has been compromised. If an emergency situation occurs that involves your child, we urge you not to panic immediately and to be supportive of your child. If a regional event occurs, the Study Abroad office immediately confirms the safety of all students in the affected area via email, social media, or phone. Additionally, we will reach out to the partner program and/or the host institution to ensure that they have accounted for all of our students. If we're unable to make contact with the student through any of those measures, only then may we contact the student's emergency contacts, which they've already submitted in their initial Study Abroad application. And we do that to determine whether they have made contact with the student or not. Now, if a personal incident affects a USC student, the host institution or program provider usually contacts the study abroad office. We will then reach out to the student to ensure that they're safe and to connect them with the appropriate resources. The study abroad office continues to monitor the situation and check in with the student until the incident is resolved. As a general rule, the study abroad office frequently collaborates with campus partners and partner institutions and follows the guidance of governmental organizations for all health and safety measures. It's also a good idea to know who to contact in case your child isn't readily available. So feel free to ask them to share with you any emergency contact information that they're given from their program provider or host institution.
I'm sure you sense this theme that many questions regarding a study abroad experience can be answered by "it depends." The same holds true when we receive questions about budgeting and how much money to plan for during a study abroad term. The reason that there is no one set answer is because this answer changes depending on what program fees cover, the cost of living in the host country, and your own spending habits. The Study Abroad Office created this program comparison worksheet to help students think through some expenses that they may need to plan for during their time abroad. While a program fee often covers courses, excursions, and housing, a few extra expenses that students often incur are their meals, transportation to the host country and within the host country, independent travel, laundry, textbooks and supplies, and their visa. We like to offer a few words of advice to students regarding money during their time abroad. We recommend that students arrive in country with about $100 in cash in the local currency. This is so that if they arrive at the airport and need to take a taxi, grab some food, or have another immediate need, that they are guaranteed to have some money on hand. We recommend that they have this money in cash because some countries are much more cash-based than in America. For example, in many taxis in America, you can pay with a credit card, but that is not always the case abroad. We also recommend that students travel with a credit card that has a chip in it. This enables the credit card to be used much more universally than students, and students will have success in using it rather than a debit card. There are some countries in which it makes sense for a student to open a local banking account, and there are some countries in which this won't be possible for students. Our advice is to defer to your child's program and to let them know if they should open a local bank account or not. At this point, your child should know whether or not they need a visa to study abroad in their host country. There are some countries that require a visa before the student departs the U.S., some countries in which the student can acquire the visa upon arrival, and still other countries that don't require visas at all. For those students that will need a visa before they depart, they might need to actually appear in person at an embassy or consulate to obtain that visa, such as Spain or Italy. Other countries' requirements only require an online application process, such as Australia. Again, the answer to how to obtain a visa really is, it depends. If your child is participating in a global exchange or global direct program, then we have already provided them with at least a starting point of how to obtain a visa. If they are participating in a global partner program, then their program provider will be the best source of information regarding the visa process. While we in the Study Abroad Office are not experts on every type of visa requirement for every country, we often look to a great resource called Trevisa.com. Trevisa will ask you a series of questions about where you're from, where you're going, and for what purpose. From there, it can determine if you will need a visa for your upcoming travels and how to obtain that visa. One other logistical point to mention is that we do not recommend booking flights until your child has received confirmation from their program on when to arrive. Even though they may have access to the academic calendar and when classes begin, almost every program requires students to arrive in advance of classes to attend some sort of mandatory orientation and welcome event. Please have your child confirm those dates before booking a flight.
So let's switch gears a little bit. We want to take a moment to discuss the transition that your student will be going through as they immerse themselves in a new culture. When anybody arrives at a new place, whether they cross an international border or not, there is a period of adjustment as that person becomes accustomed to the new cultural norms. That adjustment might be fun and exciting and new, or it might be frustrating and even scary. All of these emotions and many others are perfectly normal. Our students have happy times as well as difficult times, and learning can happen within either space. In fact, in our experience, we found that deep learning can occur when you're experiencing real conflict or frustration. A model of cultural transitions that we use in our office recognizes and validates the ups and downs that students may experience during their time abroad. The transition may include positive aspects such as cultural surprise, exploration, and adjustment, but it could just as likely include cultural conflict, fatigue, and even stress. I want to reiterate that even though some of these aspects of the cultural transition sound scary or overwhelming, you sometimes have to go through those moments to experience real learning. And nobody's experience is the same. Your student might find themselves immediately experiencing cultural stress before they move into a period of cultural adjustment. They might experience all of these aspects or just a few. One piece of advice we often give students is to find a support network of people who are not going through the same cultural transition that they are. In other words, find a support network outside of other program participants, such as a resident director, local friends, local professors, or even you. If they're in a negative space and they try to find support from somebody else in an equally negative space, chances are they're going to stay in that negative space for a long while. So outside support could be useful. This is where your support can really benefit your student. So I want to talk for a minute about how you can best support your child while they're abroad. To begin with, a great way to be involved and to support your student before they go abroad is to encourage them to research their host country prior to departure. You can become familiar with their host country as well, which will be useful for when you plan your trip to visit them. Check in with your student regularly, but understand that you may not hear from them every day. Your student will want to share their amazing experiences with you, but they'll also be in the middle of their study abroad experience and might not want to be on the telephone every day. Be a strong support system for your student while they're abroad. Be there to listen and discuss the cultural transition. It's normal to feel homesick, but encourage your student to focus on the positive aspects of their new adventure. It's important to help your student with responsible planning, packing, and budgeting skills. However, make sure your student is also making his or her own decisions. This is a time for them to really mature and grow their independence. They'll thank you for this.
Keeping in touch with your student doesn't have to be difficult. We would suggest researching international plans with your carrier. Some of them offer cheap and easy international plans, and others do not. However, if you choose to not get an international calling plan, you have other options to stay in touch. If your child is going abroad with a global partner program, some of these offer guidance on getting a local phone plan or even have a local phone that students can rent while they're abroad. Otherwise, there are various apps you can download on your phone or use on your laptop or tablet to maintain contact while your student is abroad. These are some examples of what you can use. And just to note, these are options for use over a Wi-Fi connection, so you don't need an international calling plan to use these. Skype and FaceTime are great video or voice messengers, or you can use them as just a call feature. iMessage is free between iPhones when you're connected to Wi-Fi. WhatsApp is one of the most common texting apps used throughout the world. It has video and voice messenger options. Google Hangouts is also a great alternative method, and it's also really great for a group call. So consider this if you have multiple children studying abroad. If you already have a Gmail account, then you already have Google Hangouts. We also have a few additional resources here that might be useful for you, for a variety of travel-related concerns. These resources were provided by NAFSA, Association of International Educators. And with that, we'd like to thank you for attending the parent webinar. We would like to continue answering any questions that you may have, and while the presentation portion of this webinar is complete, we'll leave it open for you to ask any questions in the chat box and connect with each other. And again, if you would like a recording of this webinar, please leave your email address in the chat box. Additionally, I would like to remind you that your student has been invited to attend our pre-departure conference this evening. It starts at 4:30. It will be from 4:30 to 8:30, in the Darla Moore School of Business, room 101. Should your student be interested in attending, we would love to help them continue to prepare for their time abroad.